Esther thought she found the perfect nanny to care for her baby, Amara, while she worked to provide for their future. But when strange things started happening, Amara constantly drowsy and unresponsive, Esther uncovered a horrifying secret. Her nanny, Ruth, had been drugging her baby to keep her asleep, putting her life at risk. What happens next is a heart-pounding fight for justice. Will Esther save her child before it's too late? Watch this chilling story unfold and discover the shocking truth behind a mother's worst nightmare. Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. Esther sat in her dim kitchen, a single bulb casting soft shadows. Rubbing her tired eyes, she looked down at her baby girl, Amara, cooing in her crib. "I can't believe your father denied you, my little angel," she whispered, determination shining in her eyes. Gently rocking the crib, she smiled, "You are so beautiful, my little one. I will do everything I can to give you the world." A tear fell as she remembered telling the father about the pregnancy. "I thought he would be happy," she murmured, shaking her head. But he just turned and walked away. Wiping her tears, she promised, "I will be both your father and mother. I will be everything you need." Leaning closer to Amara, her heart full, she declared, "I love you so much. You are my light in this bustling city. No matter how hard it gets, I will fight for you every day." With a heavy heart, she picked up her phone and dialed Amina's number. Amina had been her closest friend for years, and when Esther needed help, Amina was always there. "Amina, I need your help," Esther said, her voice quivering with the weight of her words. "I need to work to support Amara, but I don't know how to manage it all. I'm exhausted." Amina, ever the supportive friend, listened patiently and offered a solution. "I've got an idea," she said after a moment. "I know someone who can help you with a job. It's at the restaurant where I work. It's long hours, but the pay is good. And I'll help you find a nanny to look after Amara while you're at work." Esther gratefully accepted the offer, knowing it was her best shot at providing for Amara. Amina managed to secure her a job working at a local restaurant, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day. But that meant Esther needed to find someone she could trust to care for her precious baby during those long hours. The search wasn't easy, but eventually, she found a woman named Ruth. Ruth seemed perfect for the job, soft-spoken, nurturing, and always smiling. Esther felt an instant connection to her and entrusted her with Amara's well-being. On the surface, Ruth appeared kind-hearted. Esther had no reason to doubt her. But Ruth had her own secrets. Every day, Esther would leave for work, leaving her baby in Ruth's care. At first, everything seemed fine. Ruth would greet Esther with a warm smile, and Amara would wave her tiny hands, cooing with joy. But over time, Esther started noticing something off. By the time she returned home from work, Amara would be fast asleep, not even stirring when Esther walked into the room. Ruth would assure her that the baby had been well taken care of, but Esther's instincts began to nag at her. One evening, after a long, exhausting day at work, Esther asked Ruth, "You're taking good care of my baby, right?" "Yes, ma'am," Ruth replied, her face calm and composed. "I make sure to feed her every 2 hours. She's not hungry, and that's why she doesn't want to breastfeed. She's a content little one." Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. Esther didn't suspect anything then, but a week later, she started noticing more unsettling things. Amara, once lively and playful, seemed lethargic. Each time Esther returned from work, her baby would be in a deep sleep, unable to stay awake even for a few minutes. It didn't make sense. "This is odd," Esther pondered as she cradled her baby. "Why does she appear so drowsy? She was perfectly fine over the weekend when I was with her, full of energy and taking 2 to 3 naps during the day, each lasting 1 to 2 hours. What's going on when I'm not around?" She noticed that when she returned home around 6:30 p.m., her baby wouldn't wake until about 4 a.m., only to stay awake until just before Esther left for work at 5:30 a.m. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Esther felt a wave of anxiety. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When she arrived home, she found Amara, once again, unresponsive and sleepy. Esther's heart raced as she dialed Amina's number, her voice trembling with urgency. Amina. I'm in a complete panic. Every time I come home, Amara is sound asleep and won't wake up. I mean, she's not breastfeeding at all, but Ruth insists she's been fed. I just don't get it. Could something be seriously wrong? Amina, immediately sensing the distress in her friend's voice, replied with a calm determination, Esther, take a deep breath. I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together. Let's meet at the restaurant tomorrow, okay? The next day, they gathered at the bustling restaurant where they both worked, the aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods wafting around them. Esther leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, Amina, it's been a week of this. I've noticed Amara is lethargic, and I'm terrified. We need to take her to the hospital. Amina nodded, her expression serious. Absolutely. Let's request some time off and get that baby checked out. However, when they returned to Esther's home to pick up Amara, a wave of dread washed over them. The door was locked, and no matter how hard they knocked, there was no response. Maybe Ruth just stepped out for a moment, Esther suggested, trying to convince herself. But as they finally managed to get inside, the sight that met them was chilling. Amara lay alone in her crib, fast asleep, with no sign of Ruth anywhere. Oh my God! Esther gasped, her heart sinking. Where is Ruth? This isn't right. She should be here with Amara. Amina's eyes widened in shock as she turned to Esther. What is happening here? This is so strange. Esther rushed to her baby's side, cradling her gently. Look at her, Amina. She won't wake up. I've tried everything to get her to breastfeed, but she just won't. This isn't how my baby behaves. Something is really wrong. Let's take her to the hospital right away, Amina urged, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. Ruth's shoulders slumped as she looked down, shame washing over her. I just wanted to be free, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted enough time to spend with my boyfriend. I thought it would be okay. Okay, the first officer interrupted, incredulous. You put a child's life at risk for your own convenience. I know. Ruth cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was wrong. I just didn't think it through. I thought I could handle it. Handle what? The second officer pressed. You're responsible for that baby's safety. This isn't just about you anymore. Ruth looked up, her eyes filled with regret. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted to feel like I had a life, too. Esther's anger boiled over. I entrusted you with my baby. The least you could have done was tell me no. You should have said you couldn't take care of her. Her voice rose, echoing off the walls. You've been lying to me every day, saying you were feeding my baby. You've been poisoning her. Did you even think about it? Did it cross your mind that those pills could jeopardize my baby's health? Ruth opened her mouth to apologize, but Esther cut her off. You don't deserve forgiveness. I don't want to see you ever again in my life. The police took Ruth into custody, charging her with endangering the baby's health and neglect. She was sentenced to 1 year in jail for her crimes, a small consolation for the anguish she had caused. As for Amara, she recovered well, and Esther vowed to be more vigilant in the future. No longer would she blindly trust someone with her child's care. She installed hidden security cameras throughout her home, ensuring that she could keep a watchful eye on her precious baby. From that day forward, Esther was determined to protect Amara at all costs, learning a hard lesson about trust and vigilance. Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. As they prepared to leave, Amina's gaze fell on the kitchen table. Wait, what's that? She asked, pointing to a few pills scattered on the surface. One pill lay broken into pieces, and beside it was a spoon with white powder. "What is this?" Esther asked, equally shocked. "Is Ruth on drugs? This can't be good." "Let's take the pills with us," Amina suggested. "Maybe we can figure out what they are when we get back." At the hospital, the atmosphere shifted from panic to urgency as the medical staff conducted a series of tests on Amara. The minutes felt like hours until finally, a doctor approached them, his expression grave. "Esther," he began, "we've found traces of melatonin in your baby's system." Esther's heart dropped. "Melatonin? What does that mean?" The doctor continued, "It can cause drowsiness, irritability, confusion, and difficulty waking up. In young infants, excessive drowsiness can even lead to breathing problems." "Is it serious?" Amina asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Generally, melatonin has a low risk of toxicity, but it can still cause significant sleepiness and difficulty staying awake in babies," the doctor explained, looking directly at Esther. "Do you know how your baby ingested this?" Esther's voice trembled as she replied, "I've been leaving Amara with a nanny, and today, we found those pills on the table." Ruth was nowhere to be seen. The doctor examined the pills closely, confirming their suspicions. "Yes, these are sleep-enhancing pills. It appears your nanny has been drugging your baby." Shock washed over Esther and Amina as they exchanged horrified glances. "What do we do?" Esther whispered. "This case needs to be reported to the police immediately," the doctor instructed, his tone firm. He picked up the phone and called the officer in charge at the local police station, reporting the crime. "If the nanny returns, please call me back so I can have officers dispatched to apprehend her." After Amara received the necessary treatment, she was finally discharged, but the weight of the situation lingered heavily in the air. Esther held her baby close, vowing to protect her at all costs. Esther and Amina returned home, their hearts heavy with worry. The house was eerily quiet, and Ruth, the nanny, had not yet returned. Where could she have gone? Esther wondered aloud, pacing the living room. "We left at 9 a.m., and now it's 1 p.m. Does this mean she's been leaving Amara here all alone?" Amina crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. "I don't like this, Esther. It doesn't feel right at all." Just then, Esther recalled a conversation with a neighbor. "Oh, I remember now," she said, her voice rising with urgency. "One neighbor approached me the other day. She said, 'Esther, you know, I've seen the nanny leave your house without your baby around 9 a.m. every day and comes back around 3 or 4 p.m. She looked so concerned." Amina's eyes widened. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner? That's alarming." Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. "I was so stupid to ignore her," Esther admitted, her voice trembling. "I wish I had listened, but I dismissed it as gossip." Amina shook her head, her expression serious. "It's not right. How could she treat a baby this way? What could possibly be going through her mind? How could she leave the baby unattended for that long? I cannot begin to comprehend this." They sat in silence, the weight of unanswered questions hanging in the air. Just then, around 3 p.m., laughter broke the stillness outside. Esther and Amina exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued. "Do you hear that?" Amina whispered, moving closer to the window. Esther nodded, her heart racing. They peered outside and spotted Ruth chatting animatedly with a male friend. "I had such a great time today," Ruth exclaimed, her laughter ringing out. "I'll definitely see you tomorrow at the same time. As usual, I'll give that little thing the sleeping milk." Esther's heart sank at the mention of sleeping milk. "What is she talking about?" she whispered to Amina, her voice trembling with disbelief. "I think she just confessed to drugging the baby," Amina replied, her face pale. "It's unreal. How could she be so heartless?" Moments later, Ruth stepped through the door, her cheerful demeanor shifting to surprise as she spotted Esther and Amina. "Oh, I just stepped out for a few minutes to go to the shop, she said, feigning innocence. What brings you home so early? Esther and Amina exchanged a quick glance, both trying to maintain a calm facade. We just got back a minute ago, Esther replied, forcing a smile. How has the baby been doing? The baby is fantastic. Ruth replied, her tone overly enthusiastic. She fed well and fell asleep. I just ran to the shop and back. Continue with your chores, don't mind us, Esther said, her heart racing. As soon as Ruth turned away, Esther stepped outside for a moment, her hands trembling as she dialed the doctor. The nanny is here. Please send the cops, she whispered urgently. Within minutes, the officer in charge dispatched a couple of police officers to Esther's home, ready to apprehend Ruth, who remained blissfully unaware of the impending confrontation. When the police entered the house, Ruth's face drained of color. What's going on? She stammered as they began to interrogate her. Ruth's demeanor shifted as the officers pressed her for answers. She fidgeted nervously, her eyes darting around the room. I've been grinding sleeping pills into powder and mixing it with the baby's milk, she confessed, her voice trembling. One of the officers raised an eyebrow, disbelief etched on his face. You did what? Why would you do something so dangerous? I just wanted her to sleep during the day. Ruth exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. I thought it would be easier for everyone. I didn't mean any harm. Another officer stepped forward, his tone firm. But you left a baby unattended. Do you understand how serious this is? Subscribe now to keep enjoying the content. Ruth's shoulders slumped as she looked down, shame washing over her. I just wanted to be free, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted enough time to spend with my boyfriend. I thought it would be okay. Okay, the first officer interrupted, incredulous. You put a child's life at risk for your own convenience. I know. Ruth cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was wrong. I just didn't think it through. I thought I could handle it. Handle what? The second officer pressed. You're responsible for that baby's safety. This isn't just about you anymore. Ruth looked up, her eyes filled with regret. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted to feel like I had a life, too. Esther's anger boiled over. I entrusted you with my baby. The least you could have done was tell me no. You should have said you couldn't take care of her. Her voice rose, echoing off the walls. You've been lying to me every day, saying you were feeding my baby. You've been poisoning her. Did you even think about it? Did it cross your mind that those pills could jeopardize my baby's health? Ruth opened her mouth to apologize, but Esther cut her off. You don't deserve forgiveness. I don't want to see you ever again in my life. The police took Ruth into custody, charging her with endangering the baby's health and neglect. She was sentenced to 1 year in jail for her crimes, a small consolation for the anguish she had caused. As for Amara, she recovered well, and Esther vowed to be more vigilant in the future. No longer would she blindly trust someone with her child's care. She installed hidden security cameras throughout her home, ensuring that she could keep a watchful eye on her precious baby. From that day forward, Esther was determined to protect Amara at all costs, learning a hard lesson about trust and vigilance. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to help our channel grow.